Doing something.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Pat Outdoors. Hope you're having a great day. Today I'm going to be trying to revive my BTR Power 48 volt 20 amp hour battery pack so that we can try to use it on the budget enduro build MX650. I previously tried to bypass the BMS on it so we can go faster on my black bike, but unfortunately that didn't go too well because I may have not known what I'm doing and I may have hooked something up incorrectly. I'm really not sure, but since last time that I took it apart, I noticed that it has a 30 amp BMS installed, not 50 amps like BTR originally stated on the listings. So while I have it apart, I'm gonna upgrade the BMS to a 35 amp because we're always trying to get as much power out of this thing, even though it's a budget build. That thing's cheap. I think the BMS was like 20 bucks or whatever. So hopefully it works. If I get this battery to work again, it's definitely gonna leave a lot more room in my $500 budget for the enduro build, which leaves us more options for a fork upgrade and some tires. So let's get started. This is what the inside of a BTR Power Pack looks like. This is the 30 amp battery management system that I was referring to. This is the charge side, and then this is the discharge side. This is the side that I tried to bypass previously, unsuccessfully. And then these are all the individual wires that go to all the batteries inside the pack. After looking at this closer, it does look like there are more wires on this one than the one that I ordered. I should have caught this earlier. Looks like this is going to be a 16S and the one I ordered is a 13S. So I'm going to order the correct BMS that's compatible with this battery and we'll be right back. And we're back with the correct BMS. This one is a 16S compatible with 48 or 60 volt. So it should technically work for this. It is only rated for 30 amps for discharge, but that's the same as the current BMS. So this one's not going to be an upgrade. It will simply get this battery back to working again, which I would be ecstatic about since that would leave a lot more room in the budget for other upgrades for this bike. And before we tear this thing apart, just want to test out the battery to see what it reads. So the battery is reading 54.3 volts, which means it's actually fully charged. What's interesting is on the charge cables, it's showing 43.3 volts or 43.2. So I know something's not right with this, but I'm glad to see that it shows 54 volts on these two cables. So that means that these batteries aren't completely gone. First impression with this new BMS is it's tiny. It's like half the size of the current BMS, but it is thicker. Good news is the harness has 17 wires, which is correct, matches this one. Not 14 like the last BMS I ordered, but these are a lot further apart. I wish it was the same plug. Then I would have this would have been a really easy install. I would just plug this one up and solder the other two wires and we'd be good. It is a slightly different design. You'll notice that on the new BMS, besides the main 17 wire plug, there are only two other ports. One's labeled C and one's labeled B. And then on the current one, besides the 17 wire plug up here, there's three ports. B, C, and P. This is where the discharge cable was going to the main load terminal, and then the B on this side is where the negative side of the battery came from, and then this actually went to the negative side of the charge port. So this is going to have to be hooked up completely differently as this, but this is supposed to be a simpler way to wire it up. Unfortunately, this BMS did not come with any sort of instructions, so I'm gonna have to do some digging online as far as wiring diagrams to make sure that I hook this up correctly. I used a voltmeter to check the voltage between the black wire here at the very end and every single one of these terminals all the way to the end. And it increasingly went up in voltage all the way up to 53.4 down here. So I know for a fact all of these are in order, which is exactly what I need for this new BMS after reviewing the diagram they had on the listing. So now I'm gonna have to figure out how to connect these 17 wires securely to these 17 wires. Considering I'm terrible at soldering, there was no way I was gonna solder 20 individual wires between this connector and the BMS. So the solution that I found are these solder sleeves. You basically insert 2 wires, one from each side of the connector, and then you heat it up. And there's a solder inside that's gonna melt to join the 2 wires together. And the shrink tubing is gonna prevent any sort of moisture from getting in. To make sure that I'm connecting all the wires in the correct order, I'm just cutting one wire, stripping it, and connecting it one at a time from left to right. Here's what the connectors look like after applying heat to them. The solder in the center just melts and fuses the 2 sets of wires together. And then the sleeve just shrinks into the wire sleeve to secure them in place. And then you know that you did it in the right order if you use a voltmeter and keep the ground here, and then use the positive side and test every single terminal all the way to the end and make sure that it's increasing in value. And in this case, this reads 54 volts. So we're good to go. Now for the next step, we're actually gonna have to solder the negative cable coming from the battery to the B negative terminal on the BMS. And then the rest of the negative cable, we're gonna solder to this port, C negative, and that's actually what's gonna connect to the negative side on the bike. We're also going to need to transfer over this negative charge cable from this BMS onto the C negative post as well. Not the prettiest soldering job, but I'm very confident that it's fully secured onto the BMS. So that's all we needed to make sure of. All the wires are now fully connected to the BMS. So now we're gonna check the voltage on these 2 wires. All right, 53.8 volts, so we should be good. Before we fully put this battery back together, I'm actually gonna hook up these 2 wires to the controller and hook this up to the motor on the bike, just to verify everything's actually functioning 100% before I reseal everything. The controller is now hooked up to the motor. I don't have the power cable to the battery hooked up just yet. I've got a fire extinguisher set aside, worst case scenario, but we're gonna plug this up in a second, key on, and throttle little by little just to see if it's gonna take any sort of load. Moment of truth. Doing something. Not as much as I'd like, but it's very interesting. I wonder what the voltage is. It's showing half charge, but when we just checked it a second ago, it showed 54 volts. I'm gonna hook up the charger to this to see if it's actually 54. With the charger hooked up, it actually shows 59 volts at that plug. Then I unplug the charger and it shows about 54.2. So I know for a fact this battery is fully charged right now, so I don't really know what's going on here. You know what? Screw it. I'm gonna tear this thing apart. With all of the covers off, I was able to confirm that all the solder connections are secure, everything's in the correct order, so I think I'm just done with this battery at this point. Unfortunately, I was not able to successfully revive my bad BTR battery pack, but I'm still glad that I did this because I'm learning a lot from this experience. You know, putting these bikes together, doing some electrical diagnosis here and there. I'm still enjoying all of this, so I'm glad that I tried reviving that. I feel like I got pretty close because last time when we last hooked it up, it didn't even turn the bike on, so we got somewhere. But I think this is me finally pulling the plug on that BTR battery pack and moving on to other options. I've got some other bad news that actually I think is turning into good news. The MX650 that I ordered for my fiance like 3 weeks ago from eBay, I bought it used for like 300 bucks, but the guy never shipped it. And he just messaged me yesterday saying that he's canceling my order because he sold it to someone else local, but I'm thinking he just never calculated how much it costs to ship a razor. He had it down for like free shipping, so his fault. I'm not too upset about it because that leaves me more funds to spend on this Enduro project. So I may be completely tossing that $500 budget and just trying to build the best bike that I can that can go off-road. So if you are interested in keeping up with this Enduro project or any of my other builds, consider subscribing to this channel. If you found today's video helpful in any way, do me a favor and hit that like button. But this is going to be it for today. Thank you for watching.